Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of DSPy interview series. Today's guest is someone who has mastered the art of untangling the complexity in his talks. Many of us in the DSPy community know him from his standout talk, Let the LLM Write the Prompts, where he broke down DSPy with a clarity that made a lot of light bulbs go off for engineers everywhere. He's Drew. Hey, Drew, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Anchor. Thanks for having me.
So, would love to know, a quick sort of high level walkthrough of your career and what you've been doing recently. How did you stumble on DSPy?
Sure. So I have a pretty varied career, but there's a constant thread, which is I work kind of at the edge of like trying to understand how humans and technology interact. And at times that led me in my early career through like branding and advertising strategy. My initial background prior to that in school was computer engineering and anthropology. So again, there you go. And then I worked at a company called PlaceIQ, which I joined very early and then grew, and then we had a great exit. And that was about interpreting. It was a big data company looking at location intelligence to understand movement data in the world. Again, trying to understand human behaviors at scale and how it's represented technologically. At that company, we did a fair amount of deep learning and machine learning as part of our pipelines. And in kind of as a big data company, it was like a lot of data pipeline. So again, that's how I kind of see the world. So I've been, I've been interested in deep learning since probably 2016, 2015. Why I was really excited about it is it makes the kind of things that were previously unaddressable and programmatically addressable, whether it be images, audio, natural language.
Got it.
And then when large language models came out and kind of reinvigorated it, that was kind of like an even bigger unlock. That was very fun. So I follow that. I write at my blog because I find writing is the best way to think. It's the best way to collaborate. And I like to explain to people how AI works in kind of a way without hype and in a way that they can actually apply to their lives. Not just engineers, but also just, people who are curious and interested about it. And so probably 18 months ago, I don't remember how I landed on it, but I stumbled on DSPy and it was curious. Like I couldn't quite figure it out. The documentation wasn't really clicking with me. And I was even like I hooked it up to an observability platform, a little proxy, so I could see the calls that it was making behind the scenes. And I think the big aha moment for me is, so in the docs, you get introduced to signatures. Signatures are this big deal. They're class-based and they're string-based. And as you're reading the docs, you see these string signatures like question, answer. And I'm like, okay, great. Where's the list of all the different question and answer inputs I can give? Like, where's the there has to be a list of it. And then at some point you realize, oh, no. The question and answer can be anything you want and we'll interpret in the back end. And that was kind of the aha unlock. And one of the reasons I really like DSPy is because of its modularity and future-proofness. So if you put just a little structure into how you define your task, in this case, your signature, it's amazing. I can't think of any other framework where a task I defined 18 months ago still works perfectly. I might just prompt optimize it again. I might choose a different module. I might choose all of these kind of details that are differently, but the signature is relevant the same way. And so we can kind of make all of these assumptions and then have all of these functions that work on the signature that, make it big. And so that clicked and I started writing about DSPy and sharing with it. And I consult a lot with people building AI frameworks. And so I would advise them to use it. And I thought to myself, I'm like, am I overfitting here? Like, am I just matching this because I just really like it? But then I come back a little later and the team was screaming ahead because suddenly they could actually maintain their programs in a way they couldn't when they had just these long Python F strings. And so, yeah.
Got it. So composability and ability to sort of extend the signature as the requirement increases, whether you want to decouple it, have multiple signatures, build a pipeline, and sort of adapt to the changing code base, right? I think this is pretty much everyone's story.
Yeah, I think so. I think you kind of come for the prompt optimization and then you stay for the maintainability and the future proofness.
You seem to have collaborated with Isaac on DSPy CLI, right? So
yes.
I've used it. I have something running with it, which is now used by a friend because they needed a web UI and just a single form where they could, basically punch a couple of things, copy paste some articles, hit submit, and just get a response. So, wanted to understand, what kind of led you to collaborate with Isaac on DSPy CLI, and if we could have a demo post that, that'd be great.
Yeah. So, Omar and I got to know each other and we worked closely. And he introduced me to Isaac, who was working on some things and thought I would be interested. And so we started collaborating. And, Isaac and I worked closely on the DSPy project. And one of the things that Isaac and I were thinking about is like what are some demos and tools or even changes to the library can we use to increase the number of places where DSPy is relevant to people. And one of the things that's interesting about DSPy is it's kind of a best kept secret. And the reason it's a best kept secret is because it grew up in the academic space and it grew up in the data pipeline space.
Oh, okay.
Like people who use DSPy in production and enterprises are almost always using it to build a data pipeline because no one's really thinking through deploy. No one's really thinking through persistent memory. They're not thinking about it in terms of these agentic things. So you kind of, and so most people building with DSPy in the academic world are using it in notebooks, booting up a GPU, saturating it, and then like shutting it down, doing experiments. And so we said like, all right, most people are using for pipelines, notebooks. What are some of the other places that people are using it? And also like, what are some of the questions we get a lot on the DSPy Discord? And there's a lot of people are asking, oh, I wrote my program. How do I deploy it? And so one of the worlds I come from is web dev. So like if you're building a SaaS
Correct.
app, how do you integrate DSPy in it? Do you just build it as kind of an internal service? Do you build it as something separate? And so we were kind of inspired to like take a try of like, how can we make deployment as easy as possible for people and development iteration as easy as possible for people? Kind of make it for people who don't program and live in notebooks, but rather live in maybe Rails or Django or whatever React program they use can kind of have an API that they can call in the same way they would anywhere else. And so that's what led us to DSPy CLI, which is, I would say, a Rails-inspired way to quickly create, iterate on, and deploy DSPy applications as HTTP endpoints. So
Right.
super
And
simple.
I would second that, I recall when I started from the tutorial to the time I had something running, it was within 2 minutes. Pip install,
Yeah, no, it's
ran the CLI. And anybody who's done DSPy knows the answers to the first 5 to 6 questions that were asked. And that's all you need to have a running web server and the API. I mean, it just felt magical. Like in 2 minutes, I have the whole thing up and running. Would love to see a demo and, sort of let people see it firsthand.
Sure. Let's do a walkthrough. All right. So I'm going to open this up. I'll bump up the text size to my screen. Pretty big. So we have this tool, DSPy CLI, and like I said, it's pretty Rails inspired. Rails comes with a great command line that allows you to quickly spin up and create boilerplate projects. So if I, essentially run DSPy CLI and I run new, it's going to walk you through the creation of your little app. For this today, let's use, I've been doing a lot of editing of my Markdown notes. So let's just call it Markdown tools.
Yep.
And it asked me, would I like to specify my first program? And the answer is yes, I would. And this is effectively creating your first signature and module, very simple module. And so for a Markdown tool, let's do something like Summarizer. I want to be able to pass it into text, and I've selected predict. And now I get to specify my string. I'm going to say text, which is a string. I'm going to type it. And then I want back a summary and a string. And I'm going to actually put, let's do length. And I'm going to give it 2 variables. And oops, let's do that real quick. I put length as an output. I don't want that. Markdown tools. I'd like to specify my first program, Summarizer. And then I'm going to select predict. And now I'm going to say text. I'm going to type it as a string. And I'm going to say length, which I'm also going to type as a string. And summary. Hit OK. I'm going to use when doing these demos, I like to use Grok, specifically Llama 4, which I find to be a great model, but also it's fast. And this is my favorite feature that Maxime Revest suggested when we were testing is he didn't like that he had to paste in the API key, which is an annoying thing for everyone. And what we did is we actually detect any saved keys that you have in your environment.
Got it.
So
Got it.
I, before this call, set up an API key, just
They pick from
export Grok
ENV.
API, and it finds it. So I use it, and we're all good. And so what it's done is it's created everything we need here to
Got it.
basically run this. And the cool thing is because I provided the API key, there's really nothing left to do. I can CD into here
Got it.
and then just run DSPy CLI serve. And that's it. Now, what does it do behind the scenes? Well, I'll explain that in a bit. Let's just look at it first. So here are my markdown tools. And I've got my summarizer predict. Let's go to one of my blog posts and just kind of copy. Let's do this piece on why you should write. And we'll copy that, put it in, and I'll say, we can write anything here. Let's write tweet length. Run program, and there we go. And I got that little output right there. And that's it. That's all I need to do. It tells me my total calls, tells me my breakdowns, tells me if
That's
it's
super helpful.
successful, what the average latency, looks at recent inferences. So I can actually pull that up. Now, one of the ways we've seen people use this, which is really nice, is rapid development. But the other thing that's actually really useful is that this call right here gets saved in the projects folder in this logs right here.
Okay.
And it's just a JSON-L file. So every call and response, we now create an JSON-L file. And so I've actually seen a lot of people use this as a way to kind of bootstrap their initial eval data set. They'll create and just type in things and then go back and check them and see if they're what they like. And then they'll use that for their eval during prompt optimization and training.
Wow, this is super helpful. So a couple of questions. It did pick everything from the ENV. Did it already set auth models authentication key, right? Now, does it save it into .env or it just continues to just pick from the env?
Okay, so the env is really only where we're storing our auth.
Okay.
We store our model config in this object called DSPy config.yaml. And the reason for this is because it allows us to set kind of our parameters, but also you have scenarios where you might want to use multiple models. So a good example of this is, here's the example that is in our GitHub file.
Mm-hmm.
And if I go into this blog tools and I pop up in this DSPy config, you can see I actually have several models in here. I have GPT-5 Mini, Nano, Sonnet, and then I'm even using a local model with LM Studio. And then up here, I basically can set my default model. What should everything go to? And down here, I can actually set different programs hit different models. So for super simple tasks, you may be fine hitting the fastest model possible. And for other tasks, you may want something a little bit more robust.
Got it. So basically, if somebody is asking the DevOps to deploy, they will supply the .env separately, or obviously the other option is if you have the .env in the folder, it will automatically pick it up, right? I mean,
it will pick it up, but it's pre-populated in the Docker ignore. But yes, it'll pick it up in the .env. So when you deploy, you will, package that correctly as you kind of go through.
Got it. Okay. So I've got a follow-up question. Let's say I've got a custom module, right? And I look at this and I say that, hey, you know what? I have these couple of custom models. Let's say it's for the product manager for annotation, or it's for the SRE team, so that they can copy paste a stack trace and the model can tell them what the bug is. And let's say it's a simple classifier that tells you that, okay, this looks like a bug for the backend team, or this looks for the front end, or something like that. So how do I sort of get my custom module that's kind of tested and integrate it quickly with the tool?
So for example, let me pull up this one. So this is a different program. So let's kill this server. And this is what we would consider like a more richer module. And we'll use this as an example to kind of explain how this works. So this is a more complex program. And there's a couple things here that are different. The first is we have our signatures here. And, our signature is all it's doing is this is essentially a deep research. I have replicated deep research in, one signature, which is we give our research brief. We have our budget, our max number of sources. We have our source URLs because we want to see what it learned from. And then for output, we want the summarized findings and a compiled report.
And assuming if it's a very long one, you just chunk it and continue to recursively call the same signature.
Yep. Well, the thing is, we don't have to recursively call it because that's what React does for us.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I am.
Yeah. Understood.
Yeah, so what's nice about this is I'm using the DSPy module React. So I have my custom module here, Researcher React, and I have my module, and I kind of init a React module with the research signature, and I provide it with tools, Internet Search and Read Web Page. These tools I've defined in the utilities folder called Internet Search, which just uses Tavily, which I have an API key, and I have a couple just plain Python functions. And then when I go to my researcher, here we go. I just import them. And now I have these functions. I add them to my React. And then in my forward, I, collect the same things I would normally do. So now I'm actually doing a little bit something different here, which is setting up a React. But this can be even further than this. A demo that.
So it's getting called per page, and the context window is enough for a single web page. So yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
But here's the other thing that I would say is great here, which is, so in my source, I have modules, and when I start DSPy CLI, all it does is it looks for modules
Introspects.
to
Okay.
use.
Awesome.
Whatever modules it finds, it detects what's going on, it detects their inputs, outputs, and then it adds in their signatures. Now, what is cool about this is, let's come over here and we're going to use the generate function.
Right.
Is call it so you can see to help. It can create different things. It can create a new module. It can create a new scaffold. It can create a new signature.
Understood.
And so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to generate a new signature. We're going to see what that help. So it says missing argument program name. So imagine I have a scenario where I want to do a couple things, which is I've got my summarizer. That's great. But maybe what I want to do is I want to first rewrite it in a much more straight way. So let's just call this program and we got it. So we have this now that was a stoic rewriter over here. And I'm going to give it a couple things. I'm going to say text input, and then I'm going to say rewritten output.
Okay.
And what this is, all this is going to do is it's going to say, given a text, rewrite it to be in a stoic manner. And that's it. We're good. What I can do is I can come in here and I can just let's import our signature. And I'm not going to do dot signatures. I'm going to do, now I'm going to do stoic rewriter. And I've got now all this right here. And I'm going to do self rewriter. And so what I can do right here is, this is now a multi-signature, multiple module call.
Modules. Yeah.
And when I come in here, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite it.
Correct.
And now it's not rewritten output. What are we calling it? Yeah, we are calling it. Collectively pull that. And then I'm going to change this to my rewritten. And I changed that. So I just edited the module. The great thing about DSPy is, because we have these conventions, which is we're using a module and we're using a signature, we can make a whole lot of guesses about exactly how this works together. And so we have this. We're going to come in and we're going to input our same text as before. Let's do, wire, right? Copy. And I'm going to say short and run. And now we have this stoic version of the same thing. And I didn't change anything in my server. I didn't instruct it to do anything else. Any Python code I write in the module is fine, so long as it's a module on the outside. That's kind of the nice thing about DSPy. It's just Python.
Yep. Yeah. So I did something. Tell me if it was the right way to do it or not. So what I did was, like I mentioned to you, I wanted to give a UI. So I just copy pasted the signatures and the module that I already had. I went inside the modules folder in the source folder and just copy pasted the thing, right? And I ran it. And one of the awesome thing is that it loaded the whole UI and it gave me a nice warning saying that, hey, you want to have strong type hinting so that I can have the return type so that I know what I need to do here, right? Because I didn't need to do the return type there when it was running as a script. So that was the one modification I made and it started working. So is that the right way to bring your already existing written thing, just copy paste or
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. That's really the only thing we enforced, which is, here's when you run DSPy CLI, and you can see it at the beginning. So when you come in here, it basically says, hey, we've discovered some programs And we go there. And so all it's doing is it's looking in the modules and it's looking at every Python file in this module. And it's saying, do I find a type of module? And if I do, I'm going to check one thing. And you discovered it, which is I want to see that this function, the forward function, is typed. It has to have input and output types. Now, the reason we do that is because it allows us to build these forms.
Correct.
And that's it.
Okay.
So you could paste in anything here. You don't even have to paste in the signature anchor. You could basically just create a random Python file with a module and whatever Python code you want in there, and it will work.
That's what I did. I just copy pasted the whole file and it was a module. It automatically detected it. The only thing was the return type. It needed type hinting and the return type for that. And it gave me a warning to sort of educate me. And I just knew what I had to do and it just worked out of the box. Awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking to someone yesterday about, who was it? It was Noah. And I don't know if you know Noah, but Noah Zeems, who works on DSPy and Arbor. He's behind the Arbor RL. And he was talking about how he's like, oh, I have this workflow when I work in notebooks, because he's an academic, so he works in notebooks. And I'm like, oh, what's the workflow? And it's like, well, I write all these things and it's really messy. And I just assume mentally that anything I put in a notebook is going to disappear. It's going to get lost. It's going to get saved as like experiment 1, 2, 3, 5, final. So what he does is, as he's building the notebooks, he's basically, when he gets a cell working the way he wants, he ends up extracting it to something else. He ends up saving it as a Python function or whatever, or a Python file. And you could do that pattern here. You could have a notebook where you're kind of developing your module. And then once it's good, paste it in here and suddenly you can deploy it and hit it as an endpoint. The other thing we haven't talked about is that all of these things are available as an API call. So, this is a long one, so you can't really see what's going on here, but like let's just show you a test. And you can see it's just a curl call. And what's nice about that is you can do this. And so I actually have this stood up behind kind of a toy app I run inside of Render as a public or a private server that only my images can call. And I didn't have to do anything. Now we have added some like auth functions that do help this out. And even some cron support as well. Isaac recently wrote a nice blog post about how he's using it to moderate the DSPy Discord. And anytime someone puts a job posting on the main thread, he's able to recognize it with the LLM and then move it to the job posting thread.
Okay, so this brings me to my next question. And so when I decided that, okay, I'm just going to use this and give access. So at that particular point of time, like obviously I could recognize that there's a web server running and that's why the page is rendering. I could recognize that I'm able to see the traces of all the API calls I made. So I was like, okay, there has to be some database there, right? And then I was like, okay, I need to deploy this. And at that point, I was like, okay, how am I going to deploy it?
But so you can deploy DSPy CLI programs in anything that supports Docker. So for example, on my network attached storage drive, my home lab, I have several interfaces that are running in a Docker image. I also, in one of my kind of toy apps that I host on Render, I host it as a private image. So it's not accessible to the internet, but it's accessible to my intranet. But yeah, we recognize auth is something people want. And we actually have a branch on the GitHub, and we have a nice workflow that allows you to generate an auth key, copy it, and then when we deploy, we can use it as well. So that'll be coming soon.
Awesome. That's perfect. So I think my next question is, let's assume hypothetical. This really catches up and is fairly stable and sort of integrates very well with DSPy in terms of, all its nuances and doesn't break for anything. Does this go in DSPy itself, or it will continue to be an independent project?
Not at all. Not at all. I think DSPy needs to remain focused on, what it is, which is signatures, and then building those signatures into compiled programs.
Got it.
That you can then call. Anything that exists outside of that, I think, is like a soft dotted line as you kind of build out into the space. And I think that's what's great about DSPy is like the magic of open source and the magic of the open source ecosystem. That's wonderful. I love it.
Awesome. Just out of curiosity, what is the UI coded in? What's the framework and what's the CSS? I didn't check, so
it's no problem. So we're just using FastAPI to serve everything, and then we're just using templates. I'm using basically just vanilla JavaScript and HTML.
Okay.
One of the things a lot of, for complex, larger applications, it's nice to use React and other component-based software. It
Right.
works well with
Right.
AI-assisted coding. But for smaller apps like this where you're templating, one of the things I love is just building without dependencies. So just having vanilla HTML and JS is really nice.
Understood. Is there some Jinja template or the FastAPI template? It's just uh, sort of a pure HTML and that's it. By the way, I'm a big fan of HTML and
Yeah,
Pine.
no, it's just super simple stuff and just simple tablets. So if you look at the UI, we really just have templates in here. And so you can see the templates and then
It's super user friendly, the developer experience of the UI,
yes.
which is what matters.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't need to be that complex and it shouldn't. I think one of the things that I think is useful for DSPy CLI is, and one of the reasons we built it is for education, to show people what's happening behind the covers and how quickly you can use DSPy to build your application. You may not end up using DSPy to deploy it, but I find it to be a great place to iterate on the application, similar to a notebook. If you're working with a team, like say you had someone who needed something, this is the best way to ship it rather than shipping them a notebook and asking them to do all these things.
Completely agree. Couple of more questions on DSPy CLI. Really quick ones. Any plan to bring in retrieval as well? Sort of, be able to, just like you take the model name and you got predict and a bunch of things. Like, do you see the possibility that retriever might become an option and then you can ask, do you want to connect to, which vector DB, the ones that are supported out of the box? And then all of a sudden, you have the ability to have some in-memory sort of vector store, maybe not connect to, like, is that something on the roadmap? Just out of curiosity.
No, and one of the reasons it's not is quite frankly is because you could just build that in your module yourself. You would just basically write the utils here with internet search.
Right.
So for example, I have my own internal app that has all of my markdown writing, and all of my writing is in a Chroma Cloud DB. And I have a tool for searching that with, plain text search, grep and, vector in that Chroma Cloud, and then it will pull it in and
But
it's just a
yeah,
simple DSPy module. It's as extensible. There's
yeah,
no
yeah.
reason we need to build a plugin. It's just a requirement. You would just import the piplib.
Right. No, that's exactly what I did in the project that where it's deployed. I was just curious. So one more
Cool.
question right there. So you mentioned auth is there on the roadmap. What else is
Yes.
solidified that you're sure you'll be adding?
I think we want to do some stress testing, like how much throughput can we handle? How can we do queuing? How can we do elegant retries? DSPy bakes a lot of retries and other things in. And FastAPI, if you get the settings right, is scalable. But if you don't get the settings right, it's not. It can kind of bite you once you have a whole bunch of people hitting it. So
Right.
I feel pretty confident about what it is, but right now it's a smaller tool, demo, support, managing discords, whatever. But I think the bigger question is can we stress test it and what do we have to change to allow it to kind of manage that elegantly? I think that is something that I would like to see. There's some design questions that I think might be a little out of reach, but the
Right.
other thing I'd love to see in here as well is this empty folder here that says optimizers.
Right.
Is, I want to make running GIPHA as easy
Yep.
as DSPy optimize, GIPHA, and then point yourself to the database,
Okay.
training data.
Got it.
And, we don't know what that looks like. And I don't think it's going to look like this. I think you're going to have to write, a Python function here that runs an optimizer. But we're still experimenting with what that API looks like. But I would love to be able to bring command line optimization to something like this.
Got it. Since you talked about JEPA and being able to do that, I can't recall the name, but there's this guy who's built a really good intuitive UI where you can see the entire nuts and bolts of JEPA in terms of the iterations, how much it's costing, how the prompts are evolving after every iteration, and so I can sort of visualize how helpful it could be. Awesome. So moving
Is it
on.
Ravish? Are you talking about
Yeah, I
Ravish?
think it's him. Yeah, I think it's him. Yep, that's him.
Yeah, so Ravish and I have definitely talked a lot about that.
Is
One
it?
of the
Wow,
things I
small world.
think that it's so one of the things that I think is a challenge when building JEPA with other people is sometimes it appears a little too much like magic. which
Yeah.
is like, oh, you just got 15% gain. Well, how did you do that? Oh, I didn't write the prompt. And it feels like it's
Yeah.
almost like people are used to like driving a stick shift car and then they go to an automatic car and they don't trust it. They're like, I don't have control over the car. And so like you have to add in that DX to helping it. And I think so Ravish has been working with some different teams and helping
Oh,
them with
okay.
GEPA. And one of the things he found is the teams want to see how that prompt changes and what the gains are. And I've actually been working on similar things as well. In fact, I'm actually working right now on a pull request for
Okay.
better instrumentation on these things. So like one of the things
Wow.
like Ravish's project is really cool, but to do it, he had to fork JEPA, and I don't want to have to fork JEPA.
Got
But
it.
I want all of these callback events added in so that we can bring
Got it.
this to life. And so
So that you
Laksha
get
and
the
I have been going back
instrumentation
and
as it.
forth on,
Got it.
yeah, so we
Awesome.
can just add that support in. Because it just needs to be understood. Like it's the same thing. You want to be able to see that evaluation, and there's no reason you can't.
Does this hook up with open telemetry, like the callbacks and all you're doing, or it's just callbacks to collect the matrix?
No, and the reason is because like again, like not yet, but you could implement that. So
Understood.
like you could use the callbacks that we're adding,
Mm-hmm.
and then you could write your own class that converts that to open telemetry. But we want to see the things very specific to JEPA, like the start of an optimization cycle, a prompt candidate it's suggesting,
Right.
evaluation events, other things like that.
And thanks for the demo. Thanks for showing to the world, what it does and the fact that it's available right now today for people to start using. So thanks to you and Isaac for that. I really enjoyed your conversation with Jeff of Chroma. It gave me so much to think. I would highly recommend everyone to, kind of go and watch that talk between Jeff and Drew, and I'll leave the link in the chat. So my first question is, somewhere in the talk you said that context engineering is the real durable engineering discipline.
No, I love prompt optimization. Look, context engineering, I'm a big fan of context engineering because I think even, and the field is going to remain relevant for a long time. And because even if you solve the hard problems, like, so example, some of the stuff Omar and Alex are doing on recursive language models, RLMs, where they're giving the LLM a Python environment to basically interrogate very long contexts, and they can show that they can eliminate context rot over incredibly long context. However, that doesn't fix the other context problems. So say you have like bad information or incorrect information that has gotten into your context, or there's bad instructions in that context. There's still all of these things that you still need to nail. And there's still the instructions that you have to pass in addition to that long context that kind of comes in. And then further, I do believe that like all of these models have their own unique little snowflakes of statistical bundles. And so the optimal prompt for one model is not going to be the same optimal prompt for another model and another model. And that is just such a fuzzy, high surface area space. Like if you go read the prompt engineering guides like that OpenAI has, some of their instructions are just like, hey, try some different words, which is like an insane thing to ask engineers to do. Like, hey, I'm just going to go switch out every single word and then back test if it works. No, automate that. Prompt engineering is a tool in optimization that increases reliability, increases your performance, allows you to run on smaller models, pairs nicely with weight updates. Like it's a tool in your tool belt and it's not going away.
Right. Okay. So let's kind of move on to the next thing that I noted down, and you can first correct me if I got it right. Sort of implied you foresee like a standard context protocol, like a universal way to package state history of any agent so that it can be consumed. So first of all, did you sort of imply of a standard emerging that's sort of adopted everywhere?
That's the dream, but I think the models are so different. And a good example of this is there's a context analyzer that Sriram has been working on that I think is really interesting. And we'll be writing about this and publishing out for a bit, but like we're using LLMs to look at the system prompts that different coding agents use. And one of the most shocking things is even though all of these, yeah, and but more importantly is that like if you compare open code to Claude code, to Kimi code, to Quen code, to to CLI, like Codex CLI, they all kind of do the same thing. But if you look at the system prompts, they're actually structurally very different. Some of them spend a long time on tone. Some of them just don't even mention it at all. And so I do think like there's too much nuance right now in the models, in the way these things are built, that will kind of allow us to, like, they're flexible enough that you can bring these threads with you to different models, but you're not going to get the optimal results in each model. So I guess it's more of a dream.
This conversation around the StarCraft UX problem, like agents able to play so many games in parallel, but how does the human process it? And the fact that like you had this strong intuition that a sort of a new UX paradigm will emerge, which is predominantly for AI.
If you think about UX, I think there's 3 different ways that I think about it, that question, at least how it came up there, which is coding agent UXs. Then the second thing is the chatbot UX, which seems dominant in every single AI application we encounter. And I'm talking about everything, not just coding agents. And then the third is this kind of dynamic UX that everybody likes, which is like, hey, let's have a website create itself optimally for whatever it is you want to do.
Right.
Let's talk about first the coding agent UX, which is the kind of thing people are talking about. Hey, now you're managing StarCraft or you're managing Command and Conquer Red Alert as 15 different things work in kind of a swarm. So I think what's going to happen this year is I think the models are going to get a lot faster while maintaining some baseline of really good accuracy. And once that happens, you're going to be sitting around waiting a lot less, and it's going to go back to chat. Now, that will mean you have more sub-agents, you can get more work done, but you still have to think about what is the point where you have to come in and make a design decision.
Understood.
And I think the people who are leaving these things running all day, I often ask, what is the thing they're working on? Like they've written this really big thing, and I don't know if that's like, should you write out the spec for your entire app and then go ask it to bring it? But then you're going to use it and you're going to have a bunch of changes. Why don't you just do it in steps and get that feedback as you go through? I find that to be more efficient.
Understood.
But I think we're going to end up back at the chat app. The second thing is the reason chat apps are so pervasive everywhere is because these agents aren't as reliable as we think they are. They're really good, but once you get outside of coding, like they still make errors, and they make errors in coding. And so there has to be a human at the keyboard to correct that error.
Got it.
And so that's why everything is a chat app, is because it handles that reliability. I think if we start to focus on reliability and getting into like 4 nines, 5 nines of accuracy, you're going to start to see that chatbot go away in some domains.
Got it.
And then the last thing is like the emergent UIs. I don't believe that's going to be, we're there yet. I think right now the role of the UI is to help create trust among users.
Right.
And this is something I brought up yesterday, which is like, I think one of the lasting impacts of DeepSeek, when it kind of made its big splash, was that it was the first free model that anyone could go to and see all the reasoning traces. And when they watched how the model reasoned, they believed in its accuracy more. Because they could see how it got there.
Got it.
And so I think the role of UI now is like, how do we show the work that the model is doing in order to create trust for users?
Got it.
And I think that's going to be one of the challenges. And that has to break out a little outside of UI, because right now chatbot interfaces are good for managing that reliability, but they're bad for when the models get so fast that you can't read everything that they say and they're doing all these sub-agent routines. You need to start to build UX to help manage that onslaught of text without overwhelming a casual user.
Awesome. Drew, thanks a lot for spending time with us, chatting with us, and all the best to you and Isaac for DSPy CLI. And thanks for giving that to the community. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Anchor.
Thank you.